Welcome viewers to another episode of Triad Expeditions, and in this episode we are going to be talking about external transmission coolers. So we have an FJ Cruiser, just as you note in the title, and we have added a wholesale automatic transmission external transmission cooler to our FJ Cruiser to combat some of the heat that is produced while towing and also venturing on off-road trails. These external transmission coolers are specifically built for different makes and models, so if you're interested in one, definitely check out Cruiser Brothers on their website to see if there is one available for your particular vehicle. So we decided to install this, and really we wish we would have done it much sooner because it does really take care of the transmission as far as the abuse that we have incurred on it when pulling our trailer and also just general off-road use, larger tires and all the extra weight. So real quick, let's talk about the benefits of an automatic transmission external transmission cooler. And one right off the bat is it's pretty simple to understand that once you put this cooler on your vehicle, you're going to increase the circulating fluid capacity. What this does is the more fluid, just like fluid in your body, the more fluid that you have, the improved ability for the heat to be dissipated as it circulates through the transmission. More volume to circulate around and allow for more heat to be absorbed as the transmission is tasked with shifting through the different gears going down the road. So that's definitely one right off the bat. Also, when you add additional transmission cooling, the fluid remains circulating through the radiator for the initial cooling, but it's also cooled additionally before returning to the transmission, with the coolest air arriving on the front of the FJ Cruiser. So let me talk about that real quick, because that was maybe a little bit confusing in that statement. So the external transmission cooler is mounted in front of the engine radiator. So the engine radiator is what normally cools your transmission, which is counterproductive, you know, and a lot of folks don't understand that, but it is the cheapest way for it to be done, is to basically route your transmission fluid through your engine radiator, since you already have an engine radiator there. So when you put an external transmission cooler in front of your radiator, and in fact, in our case, it's in front of the Supercharger intercooler, so we basically have 3 radiators that are heat exchangers, for more specific term, that is on our FJ Cruiser. 2 of them that's not normally on there. One of them being the external transmission cooler, and then behind that is the Supercharger intercooler, and then behind that is the OEM radiator that is normally on the vehicle. So the transmission cooler is out front of all 3 of these, and so it is absolutely getting the coolest air and the most air of all 3 of them as it passes through the fins, the cooling fins of this radiator. So the good news is that when it does circulate, when your transmission fluid is circulating, it's still going through the original engine radiator, but now it's going through a cooler radiator right before it goes back into your transmission. So your transmission is receiving much cooler fluid than it would have if it did not have the external transmission cooler. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense about what we're talking about and the reason why. And if you look at the diagram, it should be pretty obvious to you of what's going on there. The fluid is circulating counterclockwise, so it's going from the transmission to the engine radiator, and then to the external transmission cooler, and then back to the transmission again. So the good thing about the wholesale automatic transmission external coolers is that they're specifically designed for each vehicle application, and the brackets are specific to that vehicle. We're going to show you here in a second, as I do some footage of the actual transmission cooler, about how we just had to make some minor changes to still be able to use it, even though we have a Supercharger intercooler mounted in the engine bay or in front of the engine radiator. The other good thing about this is that you are getting absolutely the maximum size that it is practical to put in the vehicle, and it has been tested. It's not a generic kit, as most applications or most modifications I've seen. People get a generic kit and then adapt it to their FJ Cruiser. This one is actually much larger, and I'm going to show you. Here's what the typical generic transmission cooler, external transmission cooler would look like. And then here is the wholesale automatic transmission cooler, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of difference both in size and also in design. The wholesale automatic transmission cooler is actually more designed for better airflow, and it has more surface area than your typical generic kit would have. It's very one of the benefits that I want to talk about to make sure that people really understand where this is going to benefit them is that when you are off-roading, there is a limited amount of airflow through your engine radiator. And when that occurs, your engine begins to heat up. You're going on some back road trail. You're not going very fast, so there's not very much airflow through that radiator. And when that occurs, your transmission is also going to suffer. And especially if you're going through a mud environment where you're having a little bit of wind spill and wheel spin is what I meant to say. And also you might be really going up steep inclines, and that's going to create another situation where the vehicle is being loaded down even more. So without that additional airflow, it's even more pertinent and even more important that you have a dedicated cooler to keep that transmission cool as much as possible. So it's really poorly engineered in that regard, that they do make the transmission cool with the engine radiator. But like I said, it's part of the design. It's cheaper for them to build a vehicle that way. And in most cases, it's very sufficient. But when we do what we do as far as add the additional weight and pull heavy trailers with our vehicles, it no longer is really practical. And the limitations of the OEM design come into play very quickly. Alright, I want to wrap this video up with just showing you the external transmission cooler in the FJ Cruiser. Here is the intercooler located in this location, and then that is the external transmission cooler. And we had to just basically trim this bracket here at the top just slightly. The bracket says wholesale, it used to say wholesale automatics, so we just had to cut it back, and also we had to remove the OEM horn. We probably could have put it back in place, but we actually decided to leave it out. For those of you that don't know, that location right there, see the horn there? This is a 2010 FJ. There is actually a wire there, so check it on your model. You can actually add an additional horn in that location with no additional wiring. It's just a plug-in, so look for that. A lot of folks don't know that. That you're able to do that. So even though we eliminated this horn, and the reason why I mentioned that is because even though we eliminated this horn, that other horn was already in place, and you could actually move your OEM horn over there and plug it in if you do have that wiring. And I think it is something that most FJs do have. So that is it for the explanation of the external transmission cooler. If anyone has any questions, just leave it in the comments or contact me directly. Also, check out our Facebook page. We do have a Triad Expeditions page. You can also reach us there. And everybody be safe. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for future videos. We will be coming out with a lot of videos here in the spring and summer. So you're going to want to make sure that you are informed when those videos reach YouTube. Thank you.